for reducing disaster risks. But I don't think a lot of protected areas, as Ed pointed out in that session yesterday, have been working with disaster risk managers. And they're new partners. IUCN is always talking about reaching out to new partners. They're new partners that might have funding with whom conservationists and protected areas managers can work. And DRR folks need to also realize the importance of protected areas for protecting people. Again, IUCN can be a strong convener in this field. Resilience. Resilience is a very strong cross-cutting theme, as Angela pointed out, and can be also a strong vehicle for raising awareness about risk reduction and conservation, and also close linkages with EBA. It can be kind of a common language. However, the challenge with resilience is that we, as Mike and I were talking about just out in the corridor here, a lot of us have maybe different starting points. Obviously, most of IUCN is based on ecology, but working in DRR, I think our starting point is more social science and looking at livelihoods. And so sometimes we might have different purposes, and that's why we see so many different definitions of resilience. But I think having a working group on that for some kind of common framework, or at least having some kind of skeleton from which various folks from IUCN can work, I think would be very interesting, and maybe some kind of joint publication or something would be worth considering. That's all I had. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
And Karen. Jean-Paul, do you want to do this one? Or? Well, I'm going to ask you to help me out as well.
I'm going to... I'm going to do the feedback on the Red List of Ecosystems journey. However, this PowerPoint was put up before our big main event, the workshop from 11 till 1, and our pavilion event from 1 till 2:30. So I'm going to ask particularly Jean-Paul to maybe make a few additional comments of sort of key stuff that came out of that. Is that okay? Okay. Just put you on. Right. In terms of change, the Red List can provide a strong basis for how change is happening. What change is taking place, we can see it visually, we have criteria to assess it, and so forth. Climate change is already one of those things that is in there in the assessments, and it can provide an analysis for threats from climate change and maybe other threats. Red List, I should tell people to quieten those noisy phones on silent mode or vibrate only. We need to identify the sort of balance. Red List of ecosystems might be able to help us balance between ecosystems and food security, and focus on the role of healthy ecosystems and how we can integrate that into natural and agricultural landscapes. In terms of risk, the whole of the Red List of ecosystems is actually going to be based around risk assessments using various criteria. So there's a very high degree of importance in there. And there's much international interest in ecosystem risk, i.e. there's a lot of interest in the Red List of ecosystems. Both within Jean-Paul and myself, we had a very successful and interesting press conference the other day, and have had a lot of press feedback on that. Risk will also be of introductory use to the DRR community. For example, be able to show how slow disasters might come about. And we want to make sure that the IUCN Red List of Ecosystems is integrated well with some of the other core IUCN products, IUCN knowledge products, which have been highlighted in the plenary sessions when the program was presented. And they include the Red List of Species, the World Database of Protected Areas, key biodiversity areas, and two other much newer products, the Nature Dependency Framework and the Governance Framework. In terms of stewardship, we would hope that the Red List of Ecosystem will be a fairly impartial tool to identify and hence reward good ecosystem management, good stewardship, and equally be a potential tool to highlight poor stewardship, and so sort of say, well, we need to do certain things to change that. And based on the risk assessments and threats that the Red List will identify, it sort of will help in the identification of actions that we can link to stewardship, whatever it might be, improved tenure, better equity considerations, whatever. We'll be working to develop strong linkages with the governance framework of IUCN, and lastly, we hope if the Red List of Ecosystems is done at a local enough level, and the Senegal example showed that we're at a district level, one can actually engage very much at a community, village, local level. But equally, the Red List of Ecosystems has potential to influence much higher level. Resilience, I think, is one of the core issues that will help underpin how the Red List is taken forward, i.e. the risk threat analysis will identify key areas where we need to engage to enhance the resilience of an ecosystem, whether it be in terms of restoration, improved management, or whatever it might be. And in this respect, I think the Red List will help identify some core components of where we might have lost or reduced the resilience of a certain ecosystem. For example, the buffering of a catchment area, or lost forests resulting in increased soil erosion. So that was really all I had. But I just, Paul, do you have, John Paul, do you have anything else to add from the last two sessions that you'd like to add to? Because we posted this before our 11 o'clock workshop.
Voy a aprovechar para también hacer uso de los generosos servicios de traducción simultánea. Lo que quería comentar era algo extra, realmente en paralelo, o digamos una percepción personal de todo este viaje, este journey de los riesgos ecosistémicos. Para mí ha sido muy interesante porque mi origen de evaluación de riesgos viene de especies. Pero durante muchos años, un par de décadas, he estado dedicado a listas rojas de especies. Y el interés en hacer listas rojas de ecosistemas viene de esa experiencia. Y nunca había tenido... Él siempre habla de cosas como planificación macroeconómica, bancos, seguros, agricultura. Y en el contexto de especies amenazadas que yo me había desenvuelto, no formaba parte del tema fundamental de la evaluación del riesgo. Y eso ha sido muy interesante. Creo que para mí esta sesión lo que me ha enseñado es que la lista roja de ecosistemas tiene mucho interés en estos mundos, que son mundos con los que tengo poco contacto previo. Y creo que el hecho de que estemos hablando de estos temas desde el principio del diseño de la lista roja va a tener un impacto muy grande. Nosotros vemos varias de las presentaciones anteriores han hablado de escala, la importancia de enfrentar estos temas tanto a escala local como a escala global. Y creo que ese es exactamente el enfoque que estamos dando nosotros. Que hay un papel de la lista roja para las comunidades locales que tiene que ver con su uso de sus recursos y sus entornos. Y hay otro papel para la lista roja a nivel global que tiene que ver con planificación más macroeconómica. Y creo que eso para mí ha sido quizás la lección principal de esta jornada, este viaje por el riesgo ecosistémico asociado con la Comisión de Manejo Ecosistémico.
Great, thank you very much, John Paul. Can we now move on to Berge and Steve are going to present. They're both busy fighting over who should present.
She can't get out of it.
They're pointing at each other. So will one of you present now?
No, we're going to stand together.
Or both stand together and we'll take a photograph of all of you.
Absolutely. We're in this together. Besides that, her name is up here. Where are you, Birgit?
Yeah, I'm here.
You notice that as I introduce this is the stripped down version. We're Spartan, but to the point. should flip that down. Do our thing. I've been tied up in a number of other events during the last 5 days, and Bittergate. Oh, that's right. We've got. I've been involved in other tasks over the last 5 days, and Bittergate has been sitting in on my behalf in many of these sessions, and it's really appropriate that she be part of this because she knows what this is about, for one thing, in the details. But one of the things I noticed in the presentations is in the first 3 or 2, we were talking sort of about things, and what we're about to talk about is what's happening on the ground. So we're drilling down and talking about how the people that are managing ecosystems are in fact going to be dealing with these issues that we've identified. So if you look at change and risk,
yeah, if you look at change and risk, what we said we try to do in our journey on ecosystem services and resilience is to try to see if it's depend on the type of ecosystem. So we went through all kind of ecosystem, from mountain, coastal, marine, floodplain and dryland areas, up to just the small ecosystem like the oasis, and try to see if, depending on the kind of ecosystem you are facing, the services and the way people see change is really different. And we find out that really it's not different. What is coming up is that everybody wants a kind of change to link and see the importance of the ecosystem services for food security, but also dealing with the risk and the change we are facing. It's why we summarize it like what is needed is to adapt ourselves on the change on how we product things, how we use even the food. Is it, for example, if you are coming from a country like a dryland area, like Mali, my region, and then you find out that there, most of production is rice. In a dry land with water scarcity, are you going to continue doing that to really cope with the change, or try to adapt what you have on your basket? So change on the product, change on the method or the systems, and change also in the area, the geographical area to deliver.
Adaptation to change and risk also leads to more in the group, the safer you are. So increased collaboration, more partnerships are an integral part of local strategies to deal with change. Traditional knowledge, understanding what your ancestors and your elders have done throughout time, is an important piece to in fact give you the intelligence or the knowledge to adapt to change. And finally, using natural infrastructures, natural resources to augment your situation. No idea how to do this. So the second half of this show is what do we do in terms of stewardship? And for Karen, stewardship is a word in my neighborhood. It is the word you use instead of the word conservation. It's what you do in terms of managing the land. If you try to use the word conservation in my neighborhood, they would think that you have horns and a tail and you should leave the room. Thank you very much. But they're all good land stewards. Tools. People on the ground need to understand what we mean when we talk about these things at this level. And these tools, these things that we freely talk about, the red list, EBA, DRR, the alphabet soup, means nothing to a person working on the ground. How do we translate that so that it actually becomes a meaningful instrument that they can use to better manage their natural resources? You get to do it.
And also trying to see that when you have this kind of tools, that you need to learn on what you're knowing. In the workshop on resilience, I've learn a kind of things what they're saying, maybe resilience. But few years back, when you sit in a room, people are talking on integrated water resource management. So see how you can learn from what you had already, what you know, and draw the experience on that, and also add it on the knowledge you had on background, traditional knowledge, and try to build it with partnership. Partnership, because as CM or ICN, you can't deliver alone. There are many partners on the ground doing the same things or having better knowledge in the area. And then when you are not standing alone and you build partnership, you deliver better, and maybe you tackle more people on the ground.
Good. So then we segue into, in dealing with stewardship and resilience, how does local authority and local management, what kind of authority do they have? What kind of responsibilities do they have in terms of managing those resources? And what supportive policies are in place to allow that to happen? But we snuck in another slide. You know we can never be totally. So what do we have? We have a need for tools and guidelines, knowledge made available to the managers of ecosystems. We need partnerships to foster this capacity building. And finally, we need ways to better empower local ecosystem managers. And I believe that if we can do this through a structure such as the Ecosystem Management Commission, we can, in fact, move the yardstick forward. Thank you.
I thought we'd see that strict instructions, 3 slides only. And he's also getting confused though. He's actually a member of the Commission of Ecosystem Management, not the Ecosystem Management Commission. That's the Ecosystem Management Program. That's Secretariat. What I'm going to do, I'm going to ask the 2 biomes to do it now, and then I'm going to ask Mike to finish off, because there could well be a little bit of interesting resilience stuff coming from the 2 biomes. Can we go dry first, Jonathan? So Jonathan Davies is head of the Global Drylands Initiative, which is part of the Ecosystem Management Program. Find your double click up there.
Thank you. I'm going to have to apologise for breaking the rules. I've got 5 slides. But I haven't got many words on each slide. I've probably got less words than some people. And honest. And I only just learned that Drylands is a ringer in this whole event. Sorry about that, for being a gatecrasher. Actually, that's one of our lessons. Drylands is a ringer in so many different events here. And it's sort of everybody's business and at the same time nobody's business. If you look at our Dryland Journey, we're just the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot of posters, a lot of workshops that we went to that were highly pertinent to the Drylands. On change, you could see that Drylands was very implicit, and change was very implicit in a lot of the presentations and a lot of the posters. Change was being dealt with in all sorts of different ways. Change around, ecosystem degradation, loss of species, particularly very powerful, very profound, social changes. Well, they weren't being dealt with as an issue as such necessarily, but they were coming up as a common theme in pretty much everything. Actually, several of our lessons here are lessons about things that were absent rather than things that were there. And it's interesting that some very, very key issues are not being articulated very clearly. Second point is one of those, volatility, the uncertainty. The drylands have their specificities, but where drylands are being discussed, these features are not really being captured very clearly. And there's a lot of profound changes going on in drylands, a lot of discussion around poverty in drylands, which means development, which means change, absolutely essential. But all of these issues are not really being understood as part of broader dryland-specific development and dryland-specific misunderstandings, let's say. I've listed a few of the issues there, but I'll move on for the sake of time. Okay, risk. A key thing that comes up here often is, has come up several times, is the weakening of governance. Recognition that governance has been particularly strong. The indigenous peoples groups and the CEASE work has been quite strong on this. It's traditionally strong, but it's weakening, and that's exposing people to more and more risk. I already mentioned these social changes: population growth, wealth creation, development, food demand, huge growth in wealth that's driving this food demand. These are some of the principal risks to drylands, because drylands include a lot of areas that might not be very suited to cultivation, but that's what we've got left. And so instead of intensifying existing cultivation, there's more and more encroachment onto, for example, grasslands and rangelands. And in relation to risk, there's quite a demand for scale. And some donors I've spoken to are saying, okay, pilots are over, we've done the pilots, now we want to go to scale. But the drylands were forgotten when the pilots were done. And we still have lessons to learn there, but we're being told it's too late for the lessons, we've got to get on and do it now. This is a new risk, because we could go and repeat the same mistakes that have been made in the past if we're not careful. So we need to be a little bit cautious. Stewardship.